hold on. Where is this music coming from? That was really weird. I just got a Sonic ad that played in my. All right, that's okay. Got it.
Okay.
Okay, there it is. There's the mysterious. There's where it is. I was trying to figure out where this weird audio was coming from, and I'm like, whoa. And I had a window that was closed in the background. So awesome. Luckily, nobody could hear it, just me. So I knew I was the only one going crazy. So, all right.
So, will you be able to see comments, live comments, or?
Yep. I've got
How
it
do
set up.
Do I just click chat or?
Yeah, if you click chat, it should pop up.
Oh,
and
okay.
you'll be able to
Okay.
see
Yeah.
the comments. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Awesome. Let me make sure that I've got.
That's awesome.
There we go. That's the one that I want. All right. Awesome. So if you're ready, I'll do the intro and we'll jump into it.
Definitely.
Cool. All right. Welcome, everybody, to another live and amplified livecast. I'm your host, Tom Quiet, and we are back at it again with another amazing podcast. Sorry for the little delay. We both had some technical issues that we were working through, but you know what? We got it figured out. Everything's squared away, and really excited to sit down and chat with our special guest today, Caitlin Mae. This has been a podcast that's been in the works for a couple of months. Rachel had been reaching out to me for the last few months. I'm assuming for the single that you released in, what was it, October? What was the last single that you released?
The last one that I released was in August, but I've been prepping this new release for over 8 weeks, so it's been a while.
Gotcha. So yeah, she reached out to me last year in probably about August, September, to do a podcast. But I've known about Caitlin since 2020. I was listening to an interview by Dom, or Country Chat with Dom was where I first learned about you. And then when you released your EP in 2021 was when I really started like paying attention to what you got going on and all that stuff. And so for the last few years, I've been following your work, and I'm really excited to finally get a chance to sit down and chat with you.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, you're based out of the UK. You're in Wales, correct?
I'm in Wales, yeah.
Okay. What was it like growing up in Wales for you?
So it is very beautiful here in Wales, but I definitely had a little bit of a difficult time growing up just because I had a lot of influences from the United States, and that kind of changed my whole perspective, especially being in the music industry. And I knew this was something that I wanted to do from a very, very young age. And so having that direction can sometimes be difficult when you're young and you're in school and you're trying to navigate growing up, and your peers are also doing the same, but maybe they don't have the same direction. And I actually had a great experience in school up until I went to high school. And then that all changed, and I had a really turbulent time, and I was bullied quite badly. And a lot of it stemmed from my musical interests and the fact that I had social media platforms from quite young, which were managed by my parents, my mum mainly, my mummager. And so I always kind of had an online presence, even though it's grown a lot more since lockdown. And for my I wouldn't call them friends, but I'll call them peers. They thought that was really strange. And so I had some trolling. I had to block a lot of people. And it wasn't just bullying in school, but it follows you home when people have access to social media. So people can sometimes be very cruel, but I think it made me stronger and it made me the person that I am today. And I truly believe things happen for a reason.
100% agreed. We're going to just kind of jump into it then, because that was the one thing that was really interesting to me when I was listening to some of your previous interviews, was the whole conversation about the bullying that you went through, and then how social media kind of magnifies that. And it not trying to lean one way or the other, but just kind of the impact that social media had on your life at such a young age is the fact that you kind of stuck with the music and just decided to persevere is really inspiring. And I just kind of want to get that out up front.
Thank you.
So to, let's kind of take a step back. When was music introduced to you? When did you start uh, having the idea of, oh, hey, I could be a musician, I could sing, right, whatever?
I have always loved music, and not just music, but the arts. So I've loved acting, dancing. Don't ever ask me to dance. I can't dance. I love dance. It just doesn't love me. Uh, but I've always had a huge passion for singing and acting. And I started off in stage school when I was very young. I was still in primary school, which I think might be middle school for
Yeah,
you guys.
yeah.
And so I was really young and I always loved it. And eventually I kind of took the leap to do music full time, which meant leaving stage school and leaving behind this whole cast. So usually when I would sing on stage, even if it was a solo performance, you'd have a whole cast behind you in a theater in front of loads of people. And it changed because suddenly I was doing solo performances and trying to forge a path for myself as a songwriter and not just a singer. And it was hugely different. It was just you on a stage in front of all these people and in front of the lights. And I wasn't sure how I was going to react to it at first. But from the minute that I stepped on that first stage as a soloist,
Mm.
I fell in love with it. And I knew that I made the right decision and I never wanted to look back. And initially, I was supposed to do music full time for a year. I
Mm.
was only a child, I was still in school. And then I was going to do a year on acting and probably just keep changing and switching and doing that. But music just took over my life and I felt like somebody else had taken the steering wheel and it wasn't in my hands anymore. And I wanted to follow that path and see it through. And so all these years later, I'm still doing music full time
Yeah.
and I still have this huge passion for acting. And hopefully one day I will also be able to pursue that to the same extent
Mm.
and push it as much as I push my music. But for right now, this is my one true love and I've always been focused on it.
Yeah. Hey, you got your start in musical theater, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes,
Uh,
definitely.
Um,
I remember when I first went to stage, even as a soloist, I would still perform musical theater pieces
mm,
rather
mm,
than country, even though country was always meant for me, I think, because I was influenced from a super young age. I was 2 when we started to visit the States a lot, specifically Florida, because my parents bought a holiday home there.
okay.
And so I had those roots in country music and I had that influence from a young age. It just took me a while to truly admit it to myself because I knew it was going to be a bit of a struggle being mainly based in the UK and also trying to explain now to my peers that not only was I a singer and a songwriter, but suddenly I was this modern country singer songwriter, and it was already difficult to try and help them understand before that. So I knew I was kind of in for a bit of a bumpy ride.
Yeah, gotcha. And what was kind of that? Was there like a pivotal moment that you realized, okay, I'm going to transition from theater to just like music in general? Was there like a moment there, or?
There was, and I remember that we were on a short break just away in the UK. We'd gone on vacation for a few days, and in the background, when we were kind of sitting around in the lounge, we had a documentary on the Shires on the TV, and suddenly this song came on in the background, and it was "My Church" by Maren Morris, and I'd never heard the song before, and I didn't know who Maren Morris was at the time. And I remember trying really hard to find what the song was. So I was trying to like type lyrics into Google and it took me ages to find it. And when I finally found it, I knew that I wanted to cover it. And the day that I covered it was just everything changed for me.
Mm,
I didn't want to go back. I suddenly felt like I'd become this whole new person. And whenever I sing songs that have that country origin, it feels so different to sing in any other genre. And I know that that's what I'm meant to do.
yeah. I'm laughing because I know that pain all too well, where it's like, I don't know the name of the song, but let's go to Google and type in that song with and you just start
I
start
know.
It is a painful struggle that
So hard.
yeah. Whereas back when I was growing up, it's like you just had to call the radio station and be like, "Yo, what's the name of that song?" We didn't. So
I know, and they have that app that you can use called Shazam,
mhm,
where you can like Shazam the song that's playing at the time. But
mhm,
if you don't Shazam it at the time it's playing, you
mhm,
can't just like hum a tune into it, which I think would be a genius idea. If you can
right?
just hum a tune into an app and it tells you this is the song you're humming,
Yeah,
that would be really helpful.
it really would. It's because I remember the first time that used Shazam. I was in college and I was at the mall with a couple of buddies, and there was a song that was playing over the PA system or the loudspeaker, whatever it is. And I was like, man, what is the name of the song? I know it. And everybody, all my friends were like, in the same boat. And they're like, you should just Shazam it. And I'm like, wait, what? And I
Yeah.
pulled it up and I'm like, oh, okay. And, and it was like, oh, this is Three Doors, like whatever the song
Yeah.
was. I don't even remember at this time, but um, yeah,
It's a whole other world.
yeah, it is. Like even nowadays, like I don't think a lot of people realize that Shazam is still a thing, and it's
I
yeah.
know. I use it. It's like my saving grace. I
Mhm.
use it daily.
Yeah, for sure. So Maren Morris was the first song that you learned how to cover. Correct?
Yes, yeah.
How long of a process was that for you to? Did you already have like a fundamental of like music, like playing guitar or whatever, or did you just kind of teach yourself from scratch how to cover the song?
So I actually covered it to a track at the time
Okay.
because I couldn't play any instruments. The first time I attempted to play an instrument, it was piano, and it was when I was really young. And my friend, her family's culture kind of meant that they didn't really think she should be spending time with friends outside of school.
Mm,
So I only got to see her in school, but she had piano lessons. So I thought, what a genius idea. I should start piano lessons and then I can spend time with her.
mm,
And just as I started piano lessons with her, she moved up to the next group and I
mhm,
wasn't in her class anymore. And I was like, this has backfired on me no end. I hate piano.
mm,
And even though I felt that way at the time, I think it was just because my plan fell apart. I
yeah,
actually love piano and would love to learn to play now. And I wish that I stuck to it back then.
yeah.
But things happen for a reason. And I ended up learning guitar as my first instrument, and I learned to play in lockdown.
Yep.
So in a way, there were some positives for me that came out of kind of COVID hitting us in the face and being
Mm,
this huge thing that we had to adapt to, and our lives changed in so many ways. But luckily for me, and I know a lot of other artists, there were positives to it, and we got to network and everything kind of went online. So not only did the artists, but the organizations and the radio stations, we all got to come together, and this community grew and became a really beautiful thing out of a not so beautiful thing.
mm, 100%, 100% agreed. Just to kind of give everybody a context of the timeline, because I feel like we kind of jumped around a little bit. You started releasing music in 2019 with your first single, "The Dream." Where was that in comparison to like when you first started, when you first covered when you first started performing or not performing, when you did the first cover?
It was hugely different. Again, I
Okay.
think there have been so many phases and we go through so many different periods in our
Mm,
lives and so many things change even day to day. Even hour to hour, things are so fast paced in this world. And I released my first single in 2019. And compared to when I first started singing covers on
mm,
stage and playing, competitions and small shows and charity events, my life kind of just snowballed,
mm,
and it came to a point where I wanted to start releasing original music,
mm,
and I couldn't play an instrument. So I would take these fully formed lyrics and a fully formed melody and an
mm,
idea and a dream, and I would kind of try and paint this picture to my producer and say, these are the instruments that I want on the track. And they would play them, or they would use a program or get live musicians to play them. And so the first song that I released was born, and that was called The Dream.
mm.
And it's very, very different to my sound now. Sonically, it's hugely
Yeah.
different. And it was more geared towards line dancing because in the UK, the country music perspective can be very different. It's hard to find that group of people who truly understand the difference between traditional country
Yeah.
music and modern country music. When you do find that community, though, it's incredible. It feels like you've come alive. And I have found that in latter years. But when I first released The Dream, I felt like the only way to kind of make an impact on the UK country scene was to go down a more traditional route.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that I did it, and it will always hold a special place in my heart. But fast forward a few years later, and I have found, a community through C2C, the huge country music festival, and everybody knows the words to the songs that I have loved for as long as I can remember. And it kind of feels like you're home.
Yeah. I will. You kind of touched on something, or brushed up against something that I've been kind of learning over the last few years, and especially since I started doing the podcast more regularly once the pandemic started hitting, from once a month to several times a week. We've had several different musicians come on from the UK that are part of the UK country scene, whether they follow more of an American style country like feeling, or like their music kind of lends more to the American style of country, or they're kind of morphing or helping build this country genre that's authentic to the UK, which I've been able to watch and kind of pay attention to over the last few years, which is really interesting to see how that's kind of unfolded, where UK, they're starting to find the UK in general is starting to find their sound, in their own authentic sound. So like they're singing about stuff that's authentic to them, and not necessarily whiskey and pickup trucks and cowboy hat, just like stuff that would be a little bit more authentic in the UK, which has been really interesting to see and kind of watch play out. And so you said you kind of did you say you kind of fall in line more with the more traditional US country, or?
Definitely more modern, but I would say that it's the modern country that comes out of the US more rather than the UK. But at the same time, I think we all have our own niche and our own sound, even within the genre, because like you said, it's not always a cliche about a truck or, beer or whiskey. Or sometimes I think it's just as important to tell a story that's really personal to you, because even though it feels personal and like you're the only person who's been through it, it can touch so many lives. And I know that firsthand from listening to other artists' songs that they've released. And I think it's almost like they just kind of picked a memory from my own brain and they wrote a song about it. And I feel like I'm in Harry Potter. Like this is magic. You're a wizard.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, the Harry Potter, that was great. That was a great reference. So kind of, or before we jump into the new single here, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you have any questions for Caitlin, feel free to drop them in the chat. Yep, that's the word I was looking for. And we'll do our best to get them answered. Just feel free to drop them in the chat there, or if you're not able to drop a comment in the chat, there's also a comment thread on our Instagram page that I shared to ask us a question. So feel free to do that any way that you feel necessary. So you got a new single, Fiona. It's dropping on Friday. That's the day it drops. What's kind of the story behind this song?
So this song is, again, quite a huge sonic change from past releases, and it delves more into the world of synth, and it's quite dark. It's got quite a deep and raw theme running throughout it, and it's about feeling lonely and also feeling like you're kind of drowning in that feeling and you're the only person who is going through it and experiencing it. And I think that only makes us feel even more alone. So you can decide whether when you feel lonely, you kind of do drown in that and succumb to it, or if you can get back up and dust yourself off and realize that there are so many other people out there feeling like that, and there is a community, and you can reach out to people, and you should reach out to people, because you don't realize how many other people are struggling at the same time as you, and
Mm.
you can be that savior for them and they could be that savior for you at the same time, and that's really special. And I think humans naturally do want to help each other, and we want to care for each other, and most of us, the majority of us, want to see the other people around us happy, and that is beautiful and something that we should cherish and treasure and nurture. So Fiona is about that feeling, but also I hope that it kind of instills hope in people that you don't feel like that forever.
Mm. And what did you land on the name Fiona? Is there a specific or a special meaning for the name?
Yes. So I felt, because it was such a dark song,
Mhm.
that I wanted it to have connotations of maybe a fairy tale. And
Mm.
one of the fairy tales that I loved growing up was Shrek, and I would watch the franchise over and over again. And so Fiona from Shrek, obviously, she kind of, her story, or we see her story begin in a tower, and she does feel trapped, and not only metaphorically but physically trapped, and it can feel the same for us, and we may not all be living fairy tales all of the time. And it's also important to remember that you don't always need somebody to save you from the tower.
Mm.
Sometimes you can save yourself, and it is up to you, and you can create the future that you want to create for
Mm.
yourself.
Yeah. That story is a lot better than the one I had in my head. So when I was when I was prepping for everything, I saw the name Fiona, and I was sitting there. I was like, okay, like just trying to into my head, trying to come up with what the song is about, like a story behind it. And for whatever reason, the only thing that kept coming to my head was in the early 2000s, or maybe mid 2000s at this point, there was this movie called Euro Trip that came out. It's a raunchy comedy about a bunch of high school students that go on a trip across Europe to meet this girl,
Yeah.
and the kind of the pivotal point of the entire movie is when the main character Scotty, his girlfriend named Fiona, dumped him and kind of set everything into place. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I wonder, but no, not even almost. So
But that's what I think is so cool about music. It's
yeah.
subjective, and
Mm.
it doesn't have to mean what it means to me to everybody else.
Yeah.
And I want people to feel differently about it.
Mm.
And I want people to think that this is related to my life and it's about this. It's so important for people to be confident that it's
Mm.
their song,
Yeah.
because even though it's my song and it's done what it needed to do for me, and now I want it to go out into the world and do what it needs to do for other people, that's really important to me.
Yeah, 100% agreed. That's the subjective nature of music, and that's really cool. So Fiona, it drops on Friday. Is this leading to another EP, or is it just like going to be a series of singles? Where's kind of things leading with Fiona?
So I think I said this a couple days ago in another interview,
Mm.
how initially I always knew that I wanted to release Fiona, and I always
Mhm.
knew it was going to be a single, but for some reason it never felt like the right time until back a couple months ago when I recorded it in Nashville. And that was after I'd written a few other songs that kind of not particularly followed the theme, but
Mm.
almost continued. They were their own entities, but they kind of continued the journey. And this is like,
Oh.
how I felt maybe a year down the line. And I realized that the reason I never felt fully comfortable with releasing Fiona up until that point was because I wanted to tell more of the story.
Mm. Okay.
And so it is going to be part of a bigger project, and it'll be my sophomore EP, and it's called Seasons Change. And I think that again is important to remember how you feel, in this season, and what
Mm.
this season looks like, and the picture that it paints is going to be so different in 3 months' time, in 6 months'
Mm.
time, in a year. You just don't know what tomorrow holds, and that's what the EP is about.
Yeah, for sure. It almost seems like this would be the perfect project to release on vinyl. Like having talked to a lot of musicians, the idea of vinyl telling a complete story, this almost sounds like that perfect project to whether it's been a minute 45, whether it's a 45 or a 33, whatever it is. But
Yeah,
it almost seems like that would be especially with like the big resurgence of vinyl kind of coming,
that
or
would be so
that's
cool.
yeah. So,
I would really love that.
yeah. So you have a visual or you've taken some visual photos. Are you working on a music video for Fiona, or is that something that's kind of not crossed your head yet?
I definitely am working on a music video for Fiona, and it was supposed to be recorded and kind of edited and ready to go out when Fiona released, or maybe a week later. Um, but again, I didn't stress too much about it because things weren't quite falling into place. But I do think that that's a sign, and you should always follow signs. And so I still believe that Fiona is meant to be a music video, but it won't be coming out the week after release. Rather, it'll be coming out probably closer to the next release.
Mm,
And so I actually had an idea to have a cover photo for the next single that is separate to Fiona, because the next single will come out as a single before it comes out alongside the EP.
mm.
And this cover photo will almost be an Easter egg that points towards something that will reveal itself in the music video. So I feel kind of like um in my Taylor Swift era, trying to put Easter eggs
Yeah,
into releases, and it's really fun to do so.
nice. Um, so now that you're kind of coming up to the final big push for Fiona, you're a week out, and then it's kind of like that first domino to fall for a much bigger project. What's kind of going through your head right now? What are you thinking as you approach the release of this first single for 2023?
I am really excited, not only for the release of Fiona, which is coming so quickly now, but for the future and for the rest of 2023, and to see what it holds, because it's really cool to not only be on the journey of just a single, but on the journey of a whole EP, because
Mm,
you get to lap up and treasure that project for longer, because you have to do more promotion, and
mm.
you get to live in this world that you've created with those songs for longer. So I really enjoy that, and I'm really excited for all my dreamers to hear Fiona. I know a few of them have, when it was debuted on BBC Introducing, and it's been played on a couple stations since then. So I know some people have heard it, but others didn't actually manage to catch the shows. So I'm really excited to see what they think, because it is hugely different to the acoustic version, and also hugely different to anything I've previously released. So it's almost nerve-wracking, but in all the best ways.
Yeah, and of course we talked about this before. Before we started the stream, but you've had a full day of media, which has to be exhausting but exciting at the same time, because you're pushing towards or not the end, but the start of a series of releases, which is exciting. One
It
thing I
really is.
did, one thing I did want to touch on, and you mentioned this just a minute ago. You call your fans, your supporters, the dreamers. Where does that kind of originate from?
That comes from my first single being released, called The Dream. And I just felt like, you see these huge legends and stars, and they have these names for their supporters and listeners and followers. And I always thought that was cool growing up. But then I realized that when I started to kind of be seen online a lot more, and my kind of public platform changed, especially with lockdown, that
Mhm.
these people who support me and listen to my music, they mean so much to me. And I've always been a dreamer, and I truly believe that we all are, even if we don't want to admit it to ourselves, deep down somewhere we're a dreamer. And it's so important to remember that, and to almost just keep pushing forward and keep reaching for those dreams, and remember that no dream is too big. And I think we all share the same viewpoint, and I look forward to every week when I do my weekly live streams, and
Mm,
all the dreamers join, and we're from all over the world, which is so cool. And I don't think would have become a possibility for me if it weren't for lockdown, because I pushed myself to start doing live streams, even though
mm.
technology terrifies me. I don't know the first thing about it. And that's kind of an inside joke we all have going on. Uh, because every week something technical will fail to work. and they'll all be trying to give me suggestions. Do this. The only thing I know how to do is turn it off and turn it back on again and just keep everything crossed.
That's
Um,
that's right.
but they really are special to me, and I hope that the army of dreamers continues to grow until we are everywhere.
And where do you stream? Are you streaming on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook?
So right now I stream on Facebook, and I
Mm,
did look into trying to stream across multiple platforms,
mm,
and I did find a few different alternative ways of doing
mm,
it, and I'm yet to make the jump
yeah,
because I'm shaking. I'm so nervous. I don't even know. I don't know how to do it.
yeah,
But I definitely, that's a plan for the future, to be able to stream on multiple platforms at the same time
mm,
and to navigate that. So that's
yeah,
a 2023 goal. But for now, it's on Facebook, and
yeah.
it's every Tuesday at 7 p.m. UK time.
Awesome. That was an issue that so originally I started streaming on Facebook. Like when the lockdown happened and we started streaming these podcasts live, I started on Facebook. And then uh last or no 20 at the end of 2021, I started seeing a lot of things happening on Twitch. And I was like, oh, let me see what's going on Twitch. And I met a few people that were like, oh, you should move your podcast to Twitch. And I'm like, okay, so we moved the podcast over to Twitch, and I was doing it on Zoom like we're doing it now, and it seemed to be cool, but I wanted to kind of press the boundaries of what was possible. I wanted to make it a little bit more interactive. I wanted to make
Yeah.
it so that musicians could like perform, because on Zoom, musicians try to perform. No, it's not going to happen because they, the features of Zoom kind of compress everything, and
Yeah.
it just sounds atrocious. So,
Yeah.
um, so I moved over to a different platform, and it worked for a bit, but then people started having issues trying to log on and get into the stream itself, and I'm like, okay, well, this isn't good. If my guests can't even get into the stream to chat to do the chat to begin with, what's the point of doing this? And then this year, I decided at the beginning of the year when we did our first podcast, January 1, I was like, you know what? I'm going to just move back to Zoom. Nobody
Yeah.
had any issues. It's not quite as cool. It's not as interactive, but it
Yeah.
it
And
gets the job done. So
yeah, it works. It
yeah.
definitely works. And Zoom has been a huge way of staying connected throughout lockdown, because I always used Skype,
Mhm.
and Skype was never really good quality, really. And maybe it's just me, maybe it's because I don't have these technical like wizard fingers, but I couldn't figure it out. I was always blurry, the other person was always blurry. Usually one of us couldn't hear the other person, and I've been Skyping since I was like 6
Yeah.
because my grandparents live in Spain, and so we
Mm.
would do family Skypes. And yeah, I never understood it really.
Yeah.
But Zoom is actually, I think, easier to navigate once you know how to like log in and start, launch a
Yeah.
meeting and do
Yeah.
all that jazz.
It's a lot more user friendly, to say the least. Uh, so you mentioned this earlier that you have your family has a vacation home in Florida, and so that leads me to, and I think you said that you come to the U.S. quite frequently. Um, how or where in Florida where do you visit in Florida?
So we don't actually have the holiday home anymore.
Okay,
Unfortunately,
gotcha,
we had to sell.
gotcha.
But we were in I think it was, I want to say Orange County, maybe. We were on Southern Dunes, which is a gated
Okay,
community.
gotcha.
I could be wrong. Honestly, I mean, especially for a long time, I was
Mm,
super, super young, so I was just taking everything in the moment.
mm,
But I adored it, and even though we did a lot of things, like we would go to the theme parks and
mhm,
we would do things that tourists typically did, we also met so many people who became lifelong friends and
mm,
family who we stay in touch with, and it almost felt like we weren't tourists anymore, and we would just spend time with them and do what the locals did. And
mm,
we would have these like house parties, because we'd usually be there for Christmas or New
mm,
Year's, and everybody in the street would kind of get together, so all of the adults and families and children, and usually it would be families too, because they'd be
yeah,
visiting for the holidays. And we'd have like chocolate fondue and there would be dogs in the house, all these neighbors' dogs, and it was just so fun. And we had a pool and jacuzzi, so we'd have like these pool parties.
Yeah.
Some people would be in the pool, and it really was a blast. And I had the time of my life out there, and I definitely want to continue visiting there and have
Mm.
that be a frequent thing
Yeah.
because I am moving to Nashville in July, ready to start university
Nice.
in August.
Okay.
And I think it's only like an hour and a half flight from Nashville to Florida. I think it's that, maybe.
Eh, Hour and a half. It would you're either going to Jacksonville or maybe Orlando. You might be able to do Orlando in an
Maybe.
hour and a half.
I'm not
It,
100%. I
yeah,
know it's a long drive,
yeah,
but I just it's close, and I just that warms my heart because there
mm,
are so many people in Florida that I know and love, and
mm,
I know I can visit them and get to spend time with them again because it's been a while, especially with lockdown and all of the restrictions with
yeah,
travel. So it'll be nice to get settled in Nashville and be able to pursue my music over there. And I do plan on traveling because I would love
yeah.
to visit so many of the different states. And I know that a lot of the artists who are based in Nashville tour all year round. So that is definitely something that I am gearing up to do this year.
Awesome, awesome. I think 2023 is going to be that year for a lot of people to kind of get out and travel. Where some people did it last year, but there were still some restrictions early on, and I think with the massive influx of people wanting to travel,
Yeah.
it was a little bit harder last year.
Yeah.
But this year, I think you're going to see a lot more people getting out to do to do tours, to just travel in general. I know that's kind of my plan. Is I've got big plans to come to the UK for the first time. I'll be coming out there at least once, hopefully twice. If I can pull it off
Oh,
twice,
that's
uh,
awesome.
there's a couple of music festivals out there that I definitely want to hit up. That I was supposed to go to one of them last year, but because the whole passport situation was taking a lot longer than I anticipated, I wasn't going to be able to
Yeah.
get my passport in time. So it was just kind of like, okay, fine. I won't
Yeah.
go this year, but put me down for next year. Make sure you get me, like, keep me in mind for next, all that fun stuff. So definitely hoping to travel. Got some Nashville trips. I live about 14 hours from Nashville, and
Oh, wow.
I'm that crazy person that doesn't mind the drive. Like like flying to me, it's just kind of like, okay, if I have to fly, I will, but if I can drive, I'd much rather see these little
Yeah.
towns in America that are just kind of like, oh, hey, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I'm not a huge fan of flying, and it is a necessity to obviously get to
yeah,
the US, and especially as frequently as I do, it's just a very important part. It would be a very
mhm,
long swim.
yeah,
Uh, so I try to suck it up and be brave, and
yeah,
just like don't think about it. Don't think about the fact that you're 40,000 feet away from, well, not even solid ground, the ocean,
the
which who
ocean.
knows how deep the ocean is. Like I can't. So I try not to think about that. I try to
Great.
preoccupy my time with movies and
Mm,
reading books and things. But it would be great to finally be based out of the US so that
mhm,
I don't actually have to do so much flying,
yeah,
and I can do a lot more driving and just sticking to what I know, which is
yeah,
the solid ground. And
yeah. I got you. So are you going to Beaumont or what's the other one? Vanderbilt, I think.
I'm going to Belmont.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
cool.
really excited.
I know a lot of people that go there for like they study commercial music or like whatever.
That,
There's a whole bunch of different, yeah,
that's what I'm doing. Yeah, commercial music.
nice. Uh, so before you move to the US, what's your show schedule looking like? Are you like performing a lot? Not as much? How often are you performing right now?
I definitely have a lot of plans to play shows prior to the big move in July, but I will actually be touring in Tennessee again in March. I felt like it was too long to leave between my last visit and the move. So I'm going to go back in March and spend almost the whole month of March
Okay.
in Nashville. So I am excited for that, to see friends old and new,
Yes.
and meet new people, and co-write with different people and play new shows. So there's a lot going on, and I'm going to be announcing my UK and USA tour schedules really soon to all my
Nice.
social media platforms.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I'll actually be in Florida and Tennessee the end of February, so I'll be in Florida the last weekend of February, and then I'll be in Nashville the first weekend of March.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because my dad lives in South Florida, so I'm gonna go visit him because it's been 2 years since I've been down to Florida.
Wow.
It's not been 2 years since I've seen him, but it's just been 2 years since I've been down to Florida.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna make an effort to get down there this year and go
I'm
visit
so
him.
jealous. Florida's my happy place. I love it.
Yeah, he lives down in the Florida Keys, so I'm going like way south. I'm really excited about it. It's been a while. So
Oh, I can't wait till my next trip to Nashville. I know to Florida. I know there's a lot of like festivals and songwriting weeks and things that they have going on there. So I definitely want to be a part of that, hopefully in 2023.
Yeah, they've got the Key West Songwriters Festival, which is basically Nashville saying, okay, we're going on a vacation to Florida. Because the first time I heard about that, I lived in Florida for a little bit. And I was living in like northern Florida in the Panhandle up in Tallahassee there. And a bunch of friends that I had made in Nashville, they're like, hey, we're coming to Key West. How far from Key West are you? And I'm like, Key West is about a 7-hour drive, 7, maybe 8-hour drive. So I'm pretty far away from Key West. They're like, well, if you're feeling up to it, you should come on down, because there's and they told me about this festival, and I'm like, huh, that's interesting. And then I started looking into the festival, and it's like, oh, I know them, I know him, I know her. It was really strange and really cool at the same time.
I felt like I was living my life through all the artists that I've met in Nashville who were playing the Key West Songwriters Festival. And I just wish that I could have been there, because it looked like so much fun. And again, you do get to network and meet new people, but it's also about spending time with, friends and fellow songwriters that you've connected with in the past, and you all share this passion, and you get to hear each other's perspectives on life, and your experiences, and how they've changed you, and how you've turned them into these songs and basically artwork. And it's really just seems like a family. So I definitely hope to be there this year.
100%. Oh, so just kind of moving forward, obviously you've got a busy 2023 with releases, moving, shows, tours, all that fun stuff. What's something that you're really hoping to accomplish? Like, what's a dream bucket list item that you hope to accomplish in 2023?
That's really hard. So a lot of my dreams and my goals are like really huge. But a dream that is still huge, but I'm hoping is achievable in 2023, is to actually play at the Grand Ole Opry, actually appear there and be able to perform, an original song, or more than one original song. It would be a dream come true. And I was lucky enough to go to the Grand Ole Opry for the first time, because the Josie Music Awards were held there, and I didn't expect to actually walk up on the stage and accept an award, but I was lucky enough to, and it felt surreal to actually stand on the stage and give an acceptance speech. But I'm sure that feeling is tenfold when you're actually performing a song that you wrote to a crowd full of people. It's just the dream.
I completely forgot that the Josie Awards were in Nashville this past year. Because I tried to keep up on all that stuff, but it's so hard, because it's like, once I realize, oh, it's Josie Award season, it's already like the weekend of it. So
I know it always comes around so fast too. Like, you find out that you've been nominated, or even last year or 2021, my Christmas song was nominated and I couldn't go out there because of the travel restrictions. And I think only diplomats could travel and they just didn't consider me a diplomat. So darn it. But I was excited to actually be able to fulfill that in 2022. And I was beyond excited and overwhelmed to be nominated again. So it was the best time and I met lots of people, but I also just got to see friends and singer-songwriters that I'd already met earlier that year since visiting Nashville for the first time in May. So it was nice to already feel like I had a place there and it's just like one big family.
Gotcha. Awesome. So one thing that we do with everybody that comes on the podcast is we play this fun little game. I used to call it rapid fire randomness, but it was never really rapid fire, but it was very random. So I have a random question. I'm kind of beta testing some new names, and as I kind of come up with them, I will throw them out there. But so basically what it is I have this random question generator, and I just want to ask you a few random questions.
Oh no, okay. I hope I don't need to have a lot of knowledge for this.
Funny you should ask.
Oh no.
First question. What topic could you talk about for 20 minutes nonstop without any actual knowledge of it?
Oh, without any actual knowledge of it? Oh, that's difficult. I mean, it's probably not good that I could talk about anything, forget about 20 minutes. I could talk 24 hours nonstop about anything. It doesn't matter if I know anything about it or not. Once I start, I just can't stop. But when you first said that, I was going to say pigs because I thought you meant just a topic that you love. I love pigs. But something that I don't know, I mean, maybe goats. I don't know anything about goats.
Nice. Okay. Does England have an Independence Day? Like America's 4th of July? Or something that would be equivalent to the 4th of July?
I'm not really sure. Maybe.
Okay. That was just the random question. All right, question number 3.
If you're from England and you're watching this stream, please don't judge me.
Chime in, please, or just say something. I don't know. What is
That's a topic I could talk about all day, and I know nothing about it.
Fair, very fair. What is the one thing you have always wanted to say to someone but never said it?
So many things. I mean, usually I do say how I feel, but there are times where I just knew it wasn't appropriate, so I didn't say it. Let me think. I'm trying to think of something that's appropriate to say and Twitch friendly.
There is no rules on our podcast, so say whatever you want to say.
Okay, let me think. I think the things that I've wanted to say that I haven't said have been kind of unreasonable because I always try to deal with situations head on in the most reasonable manner possible, and I try to think it through and only go in with the facts and try not to go in with emotion. But I have said this to my mum a few times, and even though I don't really have the words prepared, I kind of wish that when I was being bullied really, really badly in high school, because it would always kind of be gang mentality too, and the teachers kind of did take sides because they would rather take the side of the majority than take the side of one person, because then they'd be getting the abuse as well. And I always regret the fact that I never unreasonably stood up, got onto my chair, and then proceeded to get onto the desks and just like gave a speech and said how I felt in the moment. Because I mean, how I felt and what I said were two different things, because I felt very emotional and it almost kind of feels explosive at the time, because you're probably feeling angry because you're in this situation that you didn't choose to be in. You're also feeling really upset and you can see the unfairness of the situation, even if nobody else can. And I always just wish that one girl who was the main bully and kind of instigated everything that happened to me in school, I always wish that I just stared directly at her and gave her the speech that I always wanted to, but never did.
Sure. And to recall a conversation that we had earlier in the podcast, according to Dave Morris, you can hum a song into Google and say, "Hey, Google, what's this song?" So you can.
I did not know that. And also, I have not seen any of the comments in this stream because I'm not sure how to. I can. It says meeting chat, but I don't know how.
Well, if you're on, if you're doing it on Zoom,
you
there
can't
are.
see.
Yeah, you'd have to pull. I'd have to send, or you'd have to pull it up on Twitch to see.
So will these hang on, let me just get Twitch up. But will the comments still be available afterwards for me to go back and
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
okay, so anything that I didn't actually respond to, I swear I wasn't ignoring you. I'm just not technical.
Yeah,
and
it's been a lot of people that aren't on Twitch, so they can't really comment. So, but we have had a few people that popped in.
Okay.
So next random question. What is a local restaurant that is well known for one specific meal? A local restaurant to you.
I'm trying to think of the name of this one because I love Indian food so much. It's my favorite. It's my favorite cuisine. Even though in my house, like my brother, he hates anything that's not chicken nuggets and chips. And he's 18, by the way. He's not 2. But he loves chicken nuggets
Put him
and
on
chips.
blast. Put him out there.
Yeah, sorry. And my parents are kind of suckers for Chinese food. And I like Chinese food, but Indian food just hits different. And there is this Indian that we always go to, and I'm trying to remember the name. I think it's Castle Gate Indian Takeaway, and that is just known for its Indian food, and I love it there. They are so cool. And I remember one time it was New Year's and we were going to have Indian takeaway for New Year's because I had worn my parents down to the point where they didn't care if they ate mud. They were just like, stop talking, we'll have whatever you want to have. Just don't talk to us, like, for a week, let us recover. And so we went to the Indian on the night that we'd planned, and they said, it's New Year's, everybody's made reservations. You can't just come here and ask for this huge Indian takeaway order. And then the manager there, who knows us and actually knows me first through my music, and we've become friends ever since, he was like, don't say that. She's like, they are our favorite customers. Of course we'll get you your Indian takeaway. And so they gave us this huge Indian takeaway meal. And even though we hadn't ordered prior to that, which everybody else did, but I probably wasn't supposed to say anything, so we'll pretend I didn't.
It's all good. And then final random question. What is a hobby you've always been interested in but never started?
Probably, I mean, I used to love taking part in sports, but I've always been very accident prone. But I think maybe something like snowboarding or skiing or surfing, something like that. And the thing that first comes to mind, and it's not a hobby, but I'm going to say it anyway, because I haven't said it in a while and I just remembered. But I really want to be a spy as well. So I don't want to give up my music to become a spy. I want to do both. And I know it's not a hobby, but it is something I haven't started yet. So
I get it. Hey. That works. That work. You know, it's you say it's not a hobby, but it could be. Anything could be a hobby.
Exactly. Especially if I haven't been hired by anyone and I'm just doing it off my own back. It's a vigilante style.
Yeah. Right. That's awesome. I think that's the first time I've ever heard somebody say they want to be a spy. But,
and everybody tells me, well, you can't be a spy now because you've told us. But I think it's a great cover.
Yeah.
You'll never know. As long as I'm still talking about being a spy, then I could be a spy potentially. And you just think I haven't started it yet.
Yeah. I mean, I think music in general is a good cover because, I mean, you're already traveling. So
Yeah. See, I
yeah.
was so young when I first said that I wanted to be a spy. I think it was like probably the first time I'd ever watched a Bond movie, and I was like,
Mhm.
I'm gonna be a spy.
Yeah. Did you watch did you watch Harriet the Spy as a young child?
I didn't, but I did watch I'm not sure what that is, but I did watch a program called Casey Undercover,
Okay.
and that
Yeah.
was kind of about a family of spies, and it
Okay.
mainly focused on this one girl, and I was like, that's me.
I
Should
think
that
I think I just showed my age there. Anybody that was around in the 90s knows Harriet the Spy. So basically the whole story was this girl from New York wanted or was a spy, and she was kind of an outcast at school. Um and so basically the whole movie is about her wanting or just doing her spy things and spying on kids and all that stuff. But her parents are telling her, no, you got to grow up, you got to give this stuff away. But in reality, she's spying because she wants to become a writer. So
Oh
yeah,
wow.
it's an interesting story. It's a Nickelodeon. It's a Nickelodeon
Oh,
movie from the mid to mid to late 90s. So
I'll have to try and check it out. It
yeah,
sounds up my alley, and maybe I
yeah,
could get some tips.
yeah. It's really cool. Uh, so I don't want to keep you too much longer here because you've been doing media all day. So um, what if anybody wants to check out your music or Fiona when it releases on Friday or any of that stuff? Where's the best place to find you online and interact with you on socials?
So, across all social media platforms, you can find me at Caitlin Mae Music, except for on Twitter, which is Caitlin Mae UK. And you spell Caitlin Caitlin and May Mae. You can find me across all music platforms too, and that's just Caitlin Mae. I'm on Patreon and YouTube too, so I have different packages available on Patreon, and I post all behind the scenes content and early access to releases and different things like that. So it's really fun to have a platform that's kind of different to the other social media platforms to play around with and show bloopers, which I have a lot of because, well, I don't even need to go into it. Um, so yeah, and my song Fiona is available to pre-order and pre-save right now on Spotify and the iTunes store. And any screenshots that get sent in to me get entered in 2 different prize draws to be announced on release day.
Awesome, awesome. Well, once again, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Hopefully, once you move to Nashville, I've been saying this for a good year and a half now, but I've given up a few different opportunities in the preparation of moving my operation to Nashville. So hopefully in the next year I'll make it happen. But
That sounds incredible.
yeah. So hopefully we'll get an opportunity to cross paths. I know I've been talking to Rachel and we've got a couple of things that hopefully will come to fruition here in the next year. And yeah, it's really exciting. 2023 is going to be a good time. I want to thank you so much for hanging out with us. It's been an absolute blast. Um, and anybody that's watching, if you haven't had a chance to follow us on Twitch, we stream every Sunday morning, Tuesday night, Thursday night at 9 a.m., 8 p.m., 8 p.m. Yep, there we go. Oh,
Thank you so
and
much for having me on the show. I have had the best time.
thank you for coming on. It's been an absolute blast. Like I said earlier when we first started, this has been a podcast in the works for at least a few months, but you've been on my radar since mid 2020 when you released your right before you released your first EP in 2021 there. So it's been a long journey, but I'm really excited that we finally had this opportunity to sit down and chat. So
Me
um
too. Thank you so much.
yeah, absolutely. Once again, thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will catch you all later. Cool. Awesome. All right, hold on a sec. Gotta wait for this to clear. All right, cool. Awesome. And no, that's not what I want to do.